Today, we're going to talk about going beyond diversity, equity, and inclusion when it comes to the actual definition of it, understanding it, as well as implementing it as instructors and staff, and being able to give professional development that is actually impactful and understood. So, for the agenda today, we're going to go over introduction, what the problem is, understanding diversity, equity, and inclusion, work life and daily life issues, plans for improvement, and then conclusion. So, what problem are we facing presently when it comes to DEI? Many times, instructors as well as staff really don't have a proper understanding of diversity, equity, and inclusion. They either A, have a lack of information and get more of the standard what is DEI, how you can implement it in regards to simple examples and or just some form of reading examples or articles. There's also a lack of personalized training, be able to really get involved, get yourself involved in situations, to see what it's like to be in somebody's shoes in the situation, as well as how it can relate to the classroom. Usually it's a lack of interactivity to keep people interested in the information, and also they may feel a little bit redundancy, excuse me, when it comes to the information. They have to hear this at work, at school, also sometimes in their personal lives. And if it's not presented different, then sometimes it may kind of gloss over their eyes when it comes to the information. Also, beyond diversity, equity, and inclusion, sometimes the importance of empathy is not being trained when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion. So, first of all, what exactly is diversity, equity, inclusion? What truly is the difference? So, for me, every time I would hear about diversity, equity, inclusion, I always put it in the same or under the same umbrella. I thought it was maybe just being separated in different words to just put in our minds that we need to keep in mind different diversity, being present where we are, whether work or school or daily life, and making sure that we are being inclusive to other people. So, of course, that's a little bit of what it is. But when you really look at it, diversity is about the quantification of ensuring that minorities are represented. So, for example, usually some companies they try to make sure they have a certain percentage of minorities in their company, and so you're kind of sitting back, quantifying. Okay, what does our department or corporation or group look like? Are we lacking diversity, and why that's important that you don't lack diversity? Equity is about acknowledging the marginalization of that minority group that you're trying to make sure is involved with it. So you're trying to keep in mind their experience, things that they have had affect their daily life, and or that history of that group that may be affecting decisions they make today, and or even how people make decisions that affect them. Inclusion then is more of a qualitative look at it to where you're trying to ensure that you are being conscious of the diversity and equity portion and ensuring that they are included in your plans when you are making classroom activities, when you're making work decisions, even in your daily life of small groups, maybe, or things you may do in your personal life in regards to relationships. So, just to give an example what this look like with diversity, you may hear comments such as, "We only have 3 minorities in our entire department. This is an issue." Or with equity, for example, we can't make everyone use a smartphone for contact in the group. Ashley and Brandy don't have a smartphone, they use landlines. So, just how we see in diversity, they're considered the quantification of the percentage or how many people in the department. With equity, they're trying to actually consider that marginalization of what is different for this group that may not have the same tech savviness as other people, or maybe just not even the income to do it. Then inclusion, shouldn't we wait on Jack and Marshall to see how they feel about the sock hop flyer? It says girl X boy out dance. What about those who date the same sex? Maybe we should get their opinion and change the theme. And so here we are trying to make sure that not only we are diverse, and that we are being conscious of equity within the group, but also ensuring that we're including this group in our decision making. So these are examples of diversity, equity, and inclusion. But what can this look like in daily life and the workplace? So before we can figure that out, though, one thing that people usually do not realize, and something that really needs to be implemented in professional development, is that it's more than just race. Okay, so when people think of diversity, they automatically go to race and ethnicity. However, it includes race, ethnicity, gender identity, sexual orientation, age, social class, physical abilities or attributes, religious or ethical value system, as well as national, origin and political beliefs. So when you are making these considerations, you cannot just think, oh, it's just long as I make sure that I'm considering somebody's culture, and as long as I'm making sure I'm considering somebody's sexual orientation, I'm good. No, it's so many other things that we have to consider in this with DEI implementation. So in the classroom, how may this look when it comes to these different groups? So let's say if you have a class where you have somebody maybe who's elderly and they haven't been in school for 20 years. I've experienced that. I had a student that was 88 years old. Maybe she was 82. She was somewhere in the 80 range. And when she came to class, she was also disabled as well. And I knew that I wouldn't be able to assume that she had a smartphone to play Kahoot in class. So I had to adjust my assignments to consider her age. She was also disabled. I actually remember she was in a biology class and they went out into the field so they can actually see different things that were brought up in class. Well, her teacher did not consider her lack of mobility. Sexual orientation, I actually remember teaching a class and I had the groups separate themselves as female and males. At that time, diversity, equity, inclusion was not a big thing. Now I can reflect back and see that was not right to do that because I made them be gender specific in their sexual orientation. Then you have religion. So this may be you celebrating Christmas with the class play and asking everybody to be involved in the manger scene. You are assuming everybody is a Christian. And then political beliefs, making the class look at the president's office agenda for consideration of their vote. So if you pick one president, you say, oh, we're going to look at their agenda. You should consider this when you go out and vote tomorrow. So when it comes to the instructors and staff responsibilities, we have to go beyond the typical professional development. Something that helps a lot is going behind the diversity, equity, inclusion and automatically showing them what stereotypes are out there about these different diverse groups and even how you have possibly stereotyped these groups, because the things that we think about people is a big part of how we treat them. And if we treat them a certain way, we're also going to make rules and decisions and assignments that actually are conducive to that thought. After that, it's really important to go over microaggressions and how, even when we are trying to have a diverse group, well, if you are not practicing equity and inclusion, you may still make a person feel like they're not included by using small things like microaggression. So, for instance, you may have a diverse group and making sure it's a certain ethnic group, but then you walk up to them and you may touch their hair and you may say, oh, wow, your hair is actually a lot longer than I would expect it to be. Well, that's not being conscious of being inclusive of that group. Then actually giving world examples that have actually happened, testimonials of people who've experienced it in the negative way and also in its change, and interactivity that really could keep a memory of what has happened and how it feels. And so having tables where each person actually has to pull a choice and they end up either maybe having a disability or a certain age, or maybe they're a certain race, and going to each situation, whether it's work, for personal life or in school, and putting them in a situation and them seeing what it feels like to be in that group. For instance, I just recently had surgery and I was not able to use my hands. I did not realize how important it is for me to consider the disabled community when it comes to my course. Some of the softwares that I use, there is no way for them to do text to speech. Okay, excuse me, speech to text. I didn't realize how important that was until I had surgery. So it helped me to see what it was like in that situation. And so it's always good to put them in that situation. And then after that, showing them how they can apply it to the classroom. And so you can look up way more information on this and these references below to get an idea of about equity, inclusion, and diversity, some things to consider when it comes to technology in a class, and creating more of a less divide among people in this diverse group, as well as different types of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and not putting it in that one group. I appreciate you watching. I hope you have learned much from this recording. Have a great day.